Anyone who has followed this channel in recent times will know just how high I've been on the bantamweight division over the last year or so. I'd even go as far as to say that I think it's the single greatest division in the sport right now, alongside and perhaps just ahead of its competitors in 145 and 155 pounds. But one of the most interesting things about bantamweight is how many fighters within it have at least some claim to the title. Of course, Aljamain Sterling is technically the champion, but come on. Petr Yan is the interim king and the man who most people would point to as the best bantamweight fighter on the planet. And then you've got TJ Dillashaw, who twice won, defended, and never actually lost his bantamweight crown inside the octagon, instead dropping his championship status after getting caught out for being a little too fond of the juice. So depending on how you feel about that. But let's not forget how recently Henry Cejudo both won and defended the bantamweight championship belt to lay his own claim at superiority within that division. There's 4 fighters who, at the very least, and I mean at the very least, have a claim to that title. It's a reason why bantamweight is so interesting right now, because things are a bit all over the place, despite the promise of stability that is to come. But personally, I actually got quite excited recently when I heard that Cejudo is now interested in fighting Petr Yan. Because in his words, Yan is the guy that everyone is afraid of. He is obviously still interested in fighting Alexander Volkanovski, but all in all, he does seem to be a bit more realistic about how far away he is from making that bout a reality, especially with Korean Zombie and then Max Holloway waiting in the wings. And as I started to think about how this may work, along with the USADA 6-month post-retirement testing pool activity thing in mind, it really did seem as though waiting until after UFC 273 was a pretty obvious choice, and a pretty obvious play for Triple C. Despite all of the Volkanovski talk, I think I started to believe that Cejudo would make a return this year due to his coaching of Davison Figueiredo, Zhang Weili, and even a brief stint with John Jones. After his constant presence in the headlines, it just seems like Cejudo is following a media-savvy strategy, something that will eventually build hype for a late 2022 return. I mean, the bantamweight title is being contested in early April, and while Cejudo himself says that he is not yet back in the USADA testing pool, contrary to what Chael Sonnen would have you believe, I would imagine that he's flirting with the idea of getting back in there quite soon to ensure that the timing is right for an assault on the winner of the UFC 273 co-main events title. I don't want to assume too much that Yan is going to win, out of respect for Sterling's chances. As much as I joke about his championship status, I think he's an excellent fighter. But something does tell me that Henry Cejudo is going to hijack a title shot before too long, after testing the waters by calling for a Volkanovski fight, and now expressing interest in a bantamweight return. On a quick side note, if you're enjoying this content and would like to stay up to date with all of our weekly uploads, be sure to subscribe to the channel before leaving a like and a comment to ensure that these mid-video calls to action remain the cringiest on the platform, making MMA Dive the undisputed kings of cringe within MMA YouTube. Also, we recently set up a Patreon account, so if you want to help support the channel, the link can be found below. I just think that the pieces have been in motion for a few months now, and once this uncertainty at the top of the bantamweight pile is cleared up, expect Henry Cejudo to jump right back into the mix. And that, ladies and gentlemen, a matchup between Cejudo and, let's just say, Petr Yan, because he is heavily favoured to win, that, ladies and gentlemen, is as good a title fight as you're going to see all year. That could well be the greatest bantamweight title fight of all time, perhaps tied for the top spot with Dominic Cruz versus TJ Dillashaw. I think this is the route to draw some serious attention to this flourishing weight class, and I do believe that the winner, be it Yan or Sterling, would certainly be smart to try to provoke confirmation out of Cejudo, because looking at the contenders right now, as good as they are, that is by far and away the biggest fight. And while I do think that Cejudo would beat Sterling, although I think it would be a lot closer than most of you might expect, given Sterling's size, athleticism, and overall skill set in all its well-roundedness, a showdown between Petr Yan and Henry Cejudo would be pretty damn incredible. Both have names, and in the last year or so, Yan is actually really starting to break out as a much loved and revered fighter. I just love the idea of seeing this happen. Seeing another huge name inject himself into a title picture that already contains TJ Dillashaw, Corey Sandhagen, and Jose Aldo, to name but a few. Now, as I've said before, I think Yan beats every bantamweight in the top 15 right now. I really do think that we could be looking at the best pound for pound fighter in the sport with this guy. And though I also think that Cejudo would give him his toughest fight out of the top 5, I would be willing to back Petr Yan to really stamp his authority on this fight as it goes on. Either way, this is an amazing time for the bantamweight division. division, and call it a hunch or a shot in the dark, but I just really started to get the sense that Henry is up to something. The guy is an incredible athlete and a truly driven competitor, and a fight between him and Jan would be exactly the type of prestigious collision that I love to see in the sport. And I think that while he gets a lot of attention for his silly demeanor, it can be easy to forget exactly what it takes to be an Olympic champion, as well as a two-weight UFC champion. That is not the normal trajectory for a fighter. Henry Cejudo is a bit of a freak competitor, all things considered. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on this one, folks. But what do you think about Triple C potentially making a return to the 135-pound division this year? And who would you back to win matchups between Cejudo and either Jan or Sterling? Do let us know your opinions in the comment section below. We always love to hear from you guys. Be sure to leave a like and a comment before subscribing to the channel so you can stay up to date with all of our latest uploads. Thank you for watching.